The Atlanta Braves came out on the winning end of a very well-played pitcher's duel last night, and then announced they were shuffling the rotation a bit for today's series finale. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, a production of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, the fellow who runs this whole thing, both here and over at BravesToday.com, a daily newsletter about the Atlanta Braves. Braves beat the Mariners last night, 3-2, in what was probably one of my favorite games of the year as an amateur pitching nerd, getting to watch these two starters square off. George Kirby, Bryce Elder. Very well pitched by both sides. Atlanta comes out on top. And we're going to get into depth on this game, in just a few minutes, because George Kirby goes 7 innings against Atlanta, but Elder, I would argue, is better than Kirby is through 6. And Matt Olson was fantastic. We're going to get to all of that. Before we do that, though, we've got to talk about today's series finale, because Atlanta kind of hinted at this leading up to the last night's start, and then confirmed it after the game. Grant Holmes is not starting the finale tonight. Martín Pérez, or this afternoon, I guess. Martín Pérez instead will get the ball opposite Bryan Woo at 4:10 p.m. And so I really want to kind of talk about what this, why would you do this and what it means for the LA series this weekend, right? Because when I look at the choice of Grant Holmes versus Martín Pérez, I understand that there are going to be people who have this idea that Grant Holmes is not going to be able to go very deep into the game, and so they are probably trying to get more length by going with Martín Pérez. I'm not saying everybody thinks that, but there are going to be folks who think that. And when you look at Grant Holmes this year, he has 7 starts. The team is 5-2 in those, by the way. 3 of those have not only been 6 innings, but have been quality starts, right? Against Arizona on the road, he went 6 innings with 1 hit, no runs. Against the Angels, he went 6 2/3 with 2 runs on 5 hits. And against Philly at home, the rematch against Philly, he went 3 runs in 6 innings, 7 hits, 4 strikeouts. He's also had 2 5-inning starts. He had a start where he was done after 4, and he had a start where he went 4 2/3. That was the one in Philly where they pulled him to go to Aaron Bummer for the top of the order, and it worked out. And so, he's not necessarily been going incredibly deep. I do want to point out he did still go 6 innings, at least 6 innings. He pitched in the 6th inning in 3 of these, and he pitched in the 7th in 1 of them. You look at Martín Pérez on the flip side here. He had a relief outing of 4 1/3 to open the year, and then he went 5 innings. He pitched into the 6th, but didn't record an out. Then he went 5 full innings. Then he went 6 full scoreless innings at Philly. Then he came in relief and pitched 3 innings in relief, and then he had a scoreless 5-inning outing. And so, if you're going from Grant Holmes to Martín Pérez for length, or I guess if we're assuming you're doing that, the decision doesn't make a lot of sense. Martín Pérez is not giving you any more length than Grant Holmes is, and I would argue Holmes has more starts where he's been able to give you 6 than Martín Pérez has. I really think what this is, I think this ends up coming down to making sure you get guys work. I was trying to figure out, do you want to set up LA? And we'll talk about that in a second. But, Martín Pérez hasn't pitched since April 28th. You're getting to the point where you had to find a way to get him into a game. And you can argue about the decision to hold him out of game 1 or game 2. And you lose game 1 because the bullpen's a little bit light and all of that. We can discuss that and was it a smart decision? But the fact remains, he is a guy that can give you 4 or 5, maybe even 6 innings. You do have a rested Didier Fuentes, a rested Ronaldo Lopez behind him. You can piggyback one of those guys. And I love the idea. I've talked about this before. I love the idea of going from a soft-tossing lefty who's throwing 90-91 to pulling out Didier Fuentes, who's throwing 96-97 from the right side behind him. I love that idea. I just love the concept of doing the study in contrast. I really think the Martín Pérez start might just be, let's get him work. Let's get him a chance to pitch and cover 5-6 innings, because that's more valuable than having him pitch 2 innings in relief and then him being down for 2 or 3 days. But what is more interesting to me than that is what to do this weekend in LA. You've got 3 against the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium, and now you've got a little bit of decision making to make as far as which of your starters you want to use. Because you can structure this multiple different ways. Option number 1 is you just push everybody back a day. And so that means Grant Holmes starts on Friday. That would put Chris Sale on Saturday. And then that would put Spencer Strider on Sunday. And so it's kind of putting your best foot forward as far as guys that you think can give you a little bit of length and all of that. And there's one notable name not in there. We're going to get to that in a second. And it gives you, that is a decision that gives you the best possible stuff against the Dodgers. I don't think there's anyone that disagrees that Holmes has better stuff than Perez. Better velocity, better breaking balls. The results might be better for Martín Pérez, but the stuff of Grant Holmes is better. So that's option number 1, is you have a day to rest the bullpen, and then you go into the LA series knowing you have a day off after as an all-hands-on-deck situation. Option number 1, right? But if there is any sort of lingering concern about Spencer Strider and his ability to, I'm not going to say right the ship, because I'm not holding Colorado against him. We kind of talked about this the other day, that his other start in a fully healthy season in Colorado was also a bad start. His stuff, the way that he pitches just doesn't, it's obviously taken him a lot longer than 2 starts to acclimate to Coors Field. But if the Braves are concerned about Strider's ability to make it through an outing in LA against the Dodgers, having to face Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani, who doesn't profile to be able to pitch in the game. He pitched last night, but they use a 6-man rotation because Shohei doesn't count as one of their 13 pitchers they're allowed to have. It's a whole thing. CJ Nikowski from the broadcast has been all over this on social media. So he doesn't line up. He lines up to start their first game after the series. But if there's concerns about what Strider's going to be able to do with whatever version of his, like if they want to see him make a start at normal elevation that's not LA, you can do that here, right? And we'll get answers this afternoon. Typically, when the game lineup is released, the team's media department, fantastic people. They all work super hard. They're great people over there. They'll email us the game notes, and in the game notes is where they list the starters for the next series. That's the first place where you find out the starters for the next series. And then a short while later, they'll update MLB.com's probable pitchers page with all of that info. You can set this up where you have Holmes on Friday, you have Sale on Saturday, and you go to Bryce Elder on Sunday. Because Elder will be on regular rest. He pitched last night. So regular rest, and they've shown a proclivity here to put Bryce Elder into the rotation every 5th day. He wants to pitch on regular rest. He doesn't want extra rest. There's some pitchers who are just like that. Max Fried was the same way. He didn't want regular rest. He wants to keep that routine start day +1. Here's what I do to recover on day 1. Here's what I do on day 2. I've got a bullpen. And he's building up to that next start. He wants to keep that routine. That's just Bryce Elder's thing. And it's hard to argue that he's not one of your top 3 starters and he's not number 3. So the other option here, Holmes on Friday, Sale on Saturday, Elder on Sunday, which means Strider does get a week off between starts. Strider started on Sunday. That would line him up for Tuesday at home versus the Cubs, which is not an easy matchup, but it is probably a little bit easier than the Dodgers on the road. And it gives Strider a chance to throw 2 bullpens. He did this a little bit last year. They'd give him a little bit of extra rest. He would throw his second bullpen in the week and work on some stuff. And after one of those is when he came out down the stretch last year with the better shape of the fastball. He fixed some stuff in that second bullpen. So I'm not opposed to the concept. We'll find out this afternoon. But Holmes, Sale, Elder is what I would do. Give Strider extra time if you can do this. And I think you can because you have both Lopez and Fuentes in the pen for length. Give Strider some extra time. Start him on Tuesday against the Cubs next week. And I'm saying all of this, assuming Grant Holmes is still in the rotation. I believe we heard on the broadcast last night when they said that Martín Pérez was going to be a starter today, that Holmes is still being treated as a starter. I do think ultimately his highest and best use is in the pen as a utility pitcher, a guy who can spot start for you. He can cover multiple innings. He can come in a leverage moment and just rip heaters and sliders past dudes. I think that's his highest and best use. But he can give you length, and length is valuable. Innings, bulk innings, is more valuable usually. So he can get a start out of him, give him a start. I do think if everybody were healthy, he's in the bullpen. In just a minute, let's talk about last night's game. That was awesome. What Elder did differently, Matt Olson's heroics, Mauricio Dubón needing his flowers. We'll do all of that next, right here on Braves Today. This episode's brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are the delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all the IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom-infused coffees. And their Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our podcast listeners 20% off of all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64000. Messages and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Braves won last night 3-2, and I just can't get over how enjoyable that game was. As an amateur pitching nerd, as somebody who just really enjoys good baseball, it was a very well-played game on both sides. George Kirby kind of did the George Kirby thing that you would expect, right? He walks one guy in his 7 innings. He does give up 5 hits and 2 runs, strikes out 5. And, again, on length, he beat Elder. But in just about every other respect, minus the walks and the length, Elder was the better pitcher. Bryce Elder, 6 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks to 9 strikeouts. Both of those runs come on a home run in the bottom of the 3rd. And this was a situation where we've talked about this before. Bryce Elder walks a guy, which walks are going to happen. But Bryce Elder walks a guy. So when the inevitable mistake that everybody makes happens, it's a multi-run mistake. In this case, he walks Mitch Garver to open the 3rd, And it was a 7-pitch at-bat, right? He throws 3 pitches in the zone. He gets a called strike and 2 fouls in the zone. Last one was on a really good slider. But then he's trying to get him to chase a slider off the plate, chase a changeup down, and then he loses a sinker up a little bit, and Garver gets on base. And then J.P. Crawford gets up 2-1, and it's 2 balls to open the at-bat. It's a cutter inside, which I love the whole idea of the cutter breaking in on a lefty. It's great. Cutter inside, 4-seamer up that Crawford doesn't chase. He gets a slider on the black away, and then he grooves a fastball. The location clearly was not supposed to be middle. That is not what he was trying to do. If you look at where Drake Baldwin set up, that pitch is supposed to be elevated towards the very top of the zone. And it's a little bit lower than he intended. And it gets launched for a 2-run homer. But after that, in the bottom of the third, and again, that was the second hit of the game for Seattle. They had a single to open the second from Josh Naylor. And it was just it was a really good pitch, a 4-seamer up and away on the black. And Naylor reaches out and gets it and puts it out in center field. But after that, Elder didn't allow another hit the entire rest of the way. And actually, Seattle doesn't get a hit until the 9th inning when they get what I colloquially call a duck fart single. And again, it was Josh Naylor. And this one was 76 miles an hour. He goes and gets a changeup down and away from Raisel Iglesias and just squirts it out to right field, right? But Elder was fantastic. He strikes out 9. And when you look at what he was doing differently, I talked about this a little bit on social media yesterday, going into the game as I was doing my game prep and I saw this. His changeup is different this year. And if you think about the fact that, hey, he worked with Greg Maddux on the cutter, it makes sense that Bryce Elder's changeup would also have gotten better, right? And I know that Jeremy Hefner, one of the things Hefner was doing was helping Bryce with that changeup. And so Bryce Elder gets the usual 6 whiffs on the slider. He finished with 17, by the way, which I haven't gone back to check, but it feels like it might be a single game high for Bryce Elder. Hey, 17 whiffs in the game, 6 on the slider. He gets 5 on the changeup, and he gets 5 on the changeup in 6 swings. He picks up whiffs on everything. He even got a whiff on the cutter, but 5 whiffs and 6 swings on the changeup. And some of the changes that he made, he's been able to cut a little bit of spin off of the changeup. And so what that does, because changeups, you want them to spin less. The goal of a changeup is to spin less than a 4-seam fastball, because that helps them not only hold the tunnel a little bit longer, but that means that more of the drop is late. That means that more of the movement of the pitch comes in the last 10, 15, 20 feet, but most importantly, after the decision point of the hitter. There's a point it's usually about halfway through the ball's flight. It can vary a little bit based on fastball or off speed, but there's a point where after that moment of the pitch's flight, it is physically impossible for the hitter to decide to swing and fire off a swing in time to get that ball. It's simple physics. It's literally the time it takes the signal to go from their brain to their body and then to execute a swing. And by cutting the spin on the changeup, he's helping it hold the tunnel earlier in the flight. And then it drops more than it used to drop after that decision point. And so because of that, that's why, one, adding the velo on the fastball last year was so important. Because now those two interact a little better. And then now with the changeups reduced spin, and I know that seems counterintuitive, but just go with me on this. It's better the velocity difference is more pronounced. You're about 7 miles an hour different now between these two. The changeup was a little bit harder. And you're looking for 7 to 10 mile an hour difference here. So he gets that 7 mile an hour difference. And it was a weapon for him last night. He didn't throw a ton of them. He was at 12% usage of the changeup. But every time he needed it, it was there. And again, he got 6 whiffs on that. He got 5 whiffs on that changeup and 6 swings. And the other one was foul. None of them were put into play. We also saw the sequencing of Elder work really well. He kind of maintained that similar kind of changeup usage throughout the order. And he did throw it to both lefties and righties. But when you looked at the other pitches, and this is another thing he's gotten really good at, the mechanics are more consistent with Elder this year. The changeup is improved. And then his sequencing was really good. He started off kind of fastball heavy. If you go by percentage of usage the first time through the order, it was 4-seamer, then sinker, then slider the first time through. The second time, he started pairing up the slider and the cutter. And so second time, by usage again, highest to lowest, it was slider, cutter, sinker, 4-seam. And then the third time through, he went back to the fastball approach of the sinker 4-seamer, but then with more cutters than the first time and more changeups than the first time. So it's a combination of a lot of things. It's more improved. Like it's the pitch movement. It's the consistency of the mechanics. It's the sequencing. This is a different version of Bryce Elder. And between what he did the end of last year and then now this, I'm convinced that you're still going to have blowups, but I'm convinced that this is the true version of Bryce Elder here. What we've wanted for a long time. Absolutely love it. There was an interesting lineup decision here. There was a couple big hits. I do want to give flowers real quick to the bullpen. Now that Raisel Iglesias is back, you saw a fully armed and operational back into the pen for Atlanta. Dylan Lee comes out, strikes out the side. Robert Suarez gets 2 strikeouts. He picks up the win because he was pitcher of record for Olson's homer. And then Iglesias does give up that 1 single, but otherwise 2 strikeouts. Atlanta's relievers struck out 7 in 3 innings. And what is it? They gave up a grand total, I think it was 4 balls in play, 3 balls in play. Yeah, 1 off of Suarez, 2 off of Iglesias. 3 balls in play. The Braves put Michael Harrison left to give him an opportunity to test his quad without the going all out with center field. And he barely had to work because you just struck everybody out. Atlanta's pitchers in this game struck out 16 Mariners. And they have Kevin Seitzer over there. So, this is a little bit of we're swinging for power. We're going to strike out more. Braves fans know what this looks like. This was the offense you had in 21 and 22 and 23 and 24. But exceptional performance from the bullpen. And when you add in Tyler Kinley to that, before you even consider Ronaldo Lopez moving into leverage situations or Didier Fuentes in leverage situations, that foursome in the back of the pen may legitimately be the best group of 4 leverage relievers in baseball. There are teams who have better 2 guys or maybe even 3 guys. I can't think of another team, and I need to go back and check this, that have 4 better leverage relievers in Atlanta. But this was obviously a pitching duel. These teams combined for 9 hits. Seattle was held to 3 hits in the entire game. And Atlanta's heroes, Matt Olson, was obviously, he had the 9th inning home run. It was his 13th of the year, which is just absurd. Solo shot off of their closer. And the sequence to get there was really good. He takes sinker slider down below the plate to get up 2-0. He then takes a sinker thigh-high inner third for a strike. And then Seattle goes with a slider away. And it's sitting in the zone a little bit. And he just turns on it. And he doesn't turn on it. He doesn't pull it. he gets it out to left center. But Matt Olson's so strong, as I've mentioned before, he doesn't have to try to hit home runs. He just has to not hit over top of them. And that ball carries at 110 miles an hour, carries that on his own. Olson had a ton of energy, a ton of like fire as he was riding the bases, which I love to see. He's typically a quiet guy. But the Matt Olson home run, Olson's not in a position to be the hero if not for Mauricio Dubón. Dubón gets on base 3 times in this one. He has 2 hits. He draws a walk. But the big thing for him was the top of the 4th. Drake Baldwin flew out to open the inning. Ozzie Albies singled back up the middle. Matt Olson singled to right. And that was a sweeper down and in, off the plate that he goes down and gets and pulls into right field. So runners on second and third, because the throw, and I think that was the mistake here, is the throw from Luke Raley goes to third base, and he's not going to catch Ozzie. But because the throw goes to third base, and Olson's watching for that, Olson advances to second base. I wrote about this last year. The Braves were the worst team in baseball last year at getting that trail runner to the next base, at advancing that trail runner. And there's so many times this year where we've seen them be able to do that. We've seen them get the trail runner on a play like that at third. Also, quick shout out here to Braves Vision. So, like, in case you weren't aware, as I understand it, the Braves Vision doesn't send their own cameramen out to Seattle. They get all of the feeds and they construct their own broadcast. Their director does all the stuff. The shot of Ozzie sliding into third base, it was from the camera well over by the dugout. So you see it's kind of like a zoomed in shot of Ozzie sliding into third ahead of the play. And then in the background of the shot, you then see Matt Olson slide into second. Fantastic cinematography. Such a good job by Braves Vision. Shout out to those folks. That was awesome. But then Michael Harris grounds out to first, so Ozzie can't score. And then Dubón comes up, and very first pitch, it's a thigh-high fastball off the plate away. And Dubón does that thing he does where he's not trying to kill the ball. He's not even making that good of contact. It was like a 65 mile an hour swing. Like, it was well below his average. But he just shoots the ball down the right field line. He gets a double. Both runs come in to score. And I've talked a lot on here before about how you can't really, as a major league hitter, like, these guys can't aim their hits. They can't say, I'm going to hit this. They can't reliably say, I'm going to hit this between the first and second baseman. Like, they can't do that. Outside of the greatest players right now and, eventual Hall of Famers like Freddie Freeman and stuff. But Mauricio Dubón's starting to make me wonder, can you specifically be good at a specific type of thing? Because this is not the first time we've seen him just short swing, shoot the ball the other way down the line. Sometimes he elevates it over the first baseman's head. And this one, Naylor was playing a little bit closer to second. And because Dubón's a righty. And so he just shoots it right down the line. Naylor has no shot at making a play. He doesn't even try. And both runs come in to score. Fantastic job by Dubón. If he doesn't do that, Matt Olson's not in a spot to be the hero. That home run makes it 2-1 Seattle. If not for Dubón's double. So flowers for him. I've said this before. I can't wait for the blue box. I can't wait to get Mauricio Dubón a blue box, get him extended, keep him here for a couple years. Can't wait for it to happen. Needs to happen today. We will be back tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to try to do this tonight. I did it after the Colorado series. I'm going to try to do an episode live tonight to break down the series. We did this on Sunday night. I'll admit, I don't think I was prepared enough for that episode. I need to have a little better notes next time. But we'll call it Braves Tonight instead of Braves Today. Somebody had the idea in the chat. But I want to just break down the series that was, answer questions, and just talk about that tonight live sometime after the game. I have to do the postcast over on Locked On Sports Atlanta, and I have to get the newsletter's game recap out, and then we can go live. We can talk about it, and then we'll be back with a standard episode on Thursday. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time on Braves Today.